So, good morning. Hello. Let's have a seat, and if you can start out in hero's pose, that's how I would like for you to start today. If that's uncomfortable for you, then just take an easy pose. Just take an easy seat. Hero's pose is kneeling, so it's a lot of flexion on your knees. If that's too intense, you can take this bolster. You can place it between your legs here and just sit on it. And again, the other option is to take it behind the knees and sit on it in this way so that you're not nearly as deeply in flexion in the knees. So a couple options there to start. And I just want you to come into this opening pose. Close your eyes and just take a moment to arrive. Palms are going to be flat on the thighs, and this class is going to be all about grounding and protection. So start to take some nice deep breaths here. And just kind of attaining this neutral position of the spine, just stacking the chin on top of the spine itself and finding a nice alignment here. And just begin to assess your current body's sensations. Just allow yourself to have a moment in time to just tune in and just see what the body has to share with you. If there's anything physically that you maybe have missed through the day, or maybe you awakened this morning with a new little ache or pain. Maybe you feel really light and joyful today. So just using this quiet time to just be the observer. And then I want you to just kind of connect to breath, starting to take some nice deep breaths in through the nose and just follow the path as it comes across the nasal passages and floats through the throat and all the way down into the deepest part of the lungs. You can keep the lips lightly parted, or maybe just let them close together and just flow through the breath. Using the breath to begin to relax the body and to kind of help you clear the mind. Setting aside anything that's distracting you, any worries, concerns, to-do lists. Just set them aside for this next 45 minutes and just be really present with yourself on the mat. Draw the palms together at the heart center and take a moment to just set an intention for your practice, and maybe it is one of grounding and protection. Acknowledge this intention and just bow down and seal it for the practice. And then opening the eyes, sweeping yourself out of this kneeling position and coming onto the back side. We're going to place the bolster to the right side of the body. We're going to extend down. If it feels good to have something underneath your neck, you can take a blanket maybe and just kind of create a little tiny cushion there to keep that nice connection, support under the neck. And then I want you to draw your left knee up towards your chest and just grab behind the thigh and just give it a little tug, stretching out the back of that hamstring, and a nice extension through the leg as you reach the heel. Flex the foot up towards the sky. Try to keep that right hip connected to the earth. So when we talk about grounding, as much of your body as you can connect to the earth, go ahead and do that. Bring that awareness to the practice. Bend the knee again and then gently guide it across the body and place it on this bolster. As you arrive here, I want you to explore how it feels with this left arm. Maybe for some of us, it feels good to just keep the lever really short and keep that left palm at the rib cage on the side of the left side of the body. If it feels really good to you, you might extend it open nice and wide in a T, and so that it's not just hanging out in the air. If you're sort of tight through the chest and the pectorals, you can place this block underneath the left arm to find support for it. The gaze is up towards the sky, and if you feel like it's yummy to turn the gaze to the left palm, you can bring a little neck stretch in as well. So as we arrive here, just gently closing the eyes or finding something to just focus your gaze on. Start to come back to that observer, just paying attention to, again, the sensations in the body. Notice how the breath is flowing. And if you can create a little more ease with the breath, by just being intentional with the inhale, drawing it in as deeply as you can, and then exhaling with a little more push. As you draw the belly button back towards the spine, it just forces the diaphragm to return to its natural state and helps you exhale more naturally. Finishing up with one last breath, empty completely, and then sweeping that left arm, if it's open, back to the right side of the body. Just kind of bringing both palms together, stacking the arms so that the whole body kind of rolls up onto the right hip, and then straighten the left leg out to join the right, and rolling back onto the back side of the body, peeling the left palm back to the earth. Take a moment just to arrive on your back and reconnect to the earth. So grounding again back into the earth and just feeling the change in that left side. There might be a sensation of a little more length from this twist that happened in the spine and in the side body and the belly. So just take a moment to just feel. Moving your bolster over to the left side. Take the right knee, draw it up towards the chest, grabbing behind the kneecap, behind the thigh, so that we're not pressing into the flexion of the knee. Flexing the foot, extend it up towards the sky. So this left leg is active as well. So it's not just kind of hanging out here, floppy, sort of. It's just really extended. Heel again is pressing into the earth. Right heel's pressing up towards the sky. Nice long opening in the back of this right leg. And then drawing that right knee down to the chest. And slowly again guiding it across the body and letting it arrive on the support, the bolster that has been moved to the left side of the body. Choosing what you want to do with this right palm, whether you want to keep it close to the body or if you want to explore opening it up, and if you need that block for the support, you can always place it underneath the right arm. Again, gaze is up or to the right with a little twist in the neck. You can close the eyes Drop in. So begin to notice if there's any place that you are holding on to any restrictions. Our body has these natural patterns that we sometimes aren't even aware of. And that's the beauty of slowing down in a yin practice. We can just sort of bring our awareness to these places that we tend to brace. Sometimes when I take a spinal twist, the actual hip that I'm turning onto, the glute will kind of squeeze and try to protect the spine from twisting. It's just a natural state that my body responds to. So I have to bring awareness into this left leg that I'm kind of laid up on and soften through the left leg, through the glute. Some of us hold a little bit of tension or bracing in the jaw and in the face. So make sure that your eyes are soft. Again, either gaze is on a particular spot or the eyes can close. And make sure you're not clenching or grinding your teeth. And just bring your awareness to the sound of the breath. It is a beautiful soundtrack to your practice when you can just come into some quiet and just listen to the ebb and flow. And emptying one last breath, begin to release the twist, bringing it back onto the back side of the body. Extend the leg nice and long. And just feel for a moment how you have aligned both sides of the body. You've brought some balance into the legs and into the hips, into the back. And just again, feeling that connection to earth, the grounding in to the mat, and feeling that protection that comes up surrounding you from the Mother Earth. And then we're slowly going to bend both knees. We're going to take this bolster that we've had on the side of the body, or maybe a smaller bolster. If you have a smaller bolster, you can use something that looks a little more like this. You can even use a block. You don't have a big heavy bolster, you can always use a block, and you can take your blanket from home and just kind of cover the bolster so it's not quite as hard. And then we're going to come into a supported bridge pose. So whatever you use to set up for supported bridge, take yourself back onto the mat and then push into the feet, lift the pelvis up towards the sky, and just make sure that you have yourself seated on the bolster so that the booty's not hanging off and you're coming into an arch. and you're not too far where you're too sloping too much off the front of it and getting a nice, you don't want that curve in your spine. So I like the big bolster because it kind of gives you a lot of support through the back side of the body. So when you come into it, I want you to bend your knees and I want you to walk your feet out to the edges of the mat so that if it's comfortable for you, the knees kind of drop in. Some of us are kind of tight through there, so it might not feel really good. You can always put a belt around your thighs if that's helpful. So when we come into this first part of bridge pose, there will be two parts. The first one is bent knees. Palms can go right on your belly, right at the base of the bottom of the ribs, so that you can ground into your breath and into your body and just feel the connection to the prana that moves with each inhale and exhale. You might start to feel some things shift underneath the palms. There's beautiful release in this pose when we bring our awareness into the belly and just soften the belly. We all tend to hold a lot of tension in this soft place in our body that's supposed to remain soft. We want a lot of space in here for all the vital organs so that the digestive tract is able to do its job, supplying our body with the nutrients that we take in, and doing the work to remove the toxins that we no longer need. So you're grounding the back of your head, the back of the skull, into the earth, and you're spreading your shoulder blades apart so that as much of the upper back and shoulders can connect into the mat. And then slowly walking the feet back towards one another so that your knees are about shoulder width apart. And I want you to anchor into the right foot, and I want you to draw the left knee up towards the chest. Get a little stretch through the right hip flexor and then replace it on the earth. Plant the left foot onto the mat and then draw the right knee up. So actively pushing through the foot that's still connected to the mat. Release, and let's do that again. Left knee up. So it's just a little marching action. Flex through the foot. Return it to the earth. Right knee draws up. Return it to the earth. And then extend both legs out, if this feels okay, across your low back. And then we're going to continue that same motion, only we're going to keep the legs extended. So left knee is going to draw up while the right foot is extended, flexing through the foot, extending towards the back of the mat, the left knee's drawing up. And then extend it nice and long and draw the right knee up. Extend it nice and long. We're going to do that again 2 more times. Well, 1 more on each side. Left knee up. Extend nice and long, and right knee up. Extend nice and long. Both legs are long on the mat. Heels are pressing into the earth. Again, back of the skull, the head's pressing. Separate your shoulder blades. Try to connect into the mat between the shoulder blades. Rest the arms, the elbows on the mat. Palms are still at the belly or on the hip points. And take a couple breaths here. Really intentional, deep breaths into the belly. And exhale. You can open the mouth. Let a little bit of energy out. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Really active breath. 1 more time. Inhale through the nose. Open the mouth. Draw the knees back up towards the ceiling. Press the feet into the earth and slide that bolster out from underneath you. Let the hips land back on the earth. Draw the feet up towards the sky. Grab the outside blade of the feet and draw those knees down towards the armpits. Happy baby. So if you do this, I want you to just notice what happens with your body. Different people come in different poses here. When they come into happy baby, some of us have really tight backs, or our hips roll up and they come off the earth. For some of us, we have some nice extension and we're able to pull the tailbone down and ground it into the mat. So just finding where you are first. I want you to then be really intentional about extending the tailbone, trying to anchor all the way down to the lower part of the spine into the mat. So that might mean that your knees drop away from your armpits a little bit, and that's fine. And then I want you to roll it up again, intentionally roll it up. And then exhale, try to extend it. Inhale, let it roll up. Exhale, let it extend down. Exhale deeply. One more time. And exhale. Draw the knees back together. Clasp behind the hips, behind the knees. Take a couple circles in one direction, maybe 3 in one direction, and then reverse it. So just massaging the back of the spine, the back side of the hips is really good. I want you to cross your legs and we're going to roll up. So some of us, this might be a little uncomfortable, and for some of us it may feel good. So depending who you are, I want you to roll a couple times, and if it doesn't feel good, just roll once. If it feels good, maybe roll 3 or 4 times. Really tucking the chin in towards the chest and just creating a nice little ball and arrive back up at the top. And we're going to come into a nice wide leg straddle. So from here, I want you to come into this nice wide leg straddle, and I want you to take your bolster, place it in front of you, flex your toes, nice tall spine, draw the belly in, rib cage is kind of knitting together here, and I want you to take a little forward fold. We're not going to hang out too long here. For some of us, the forward fold might actually look like this, and the forehead just comes into the bolster. I want the actual fold to come from the hips, so hinging at the hips and not curling and rounding through the spine. So we're taking it into the inner thighs and we're staying nice and long in our spine. So take an inhale, flex your toes, flex your feet, draw it in, and then see where you land here. Maybe see where you land before you start to curve through the spine. And if that's here, that is perfectly yummy. So you're gonna feel this huge awakening sensation all the way up the inner line of the legs, which is a big energy meridian in the body. And we're just going to pause here and take a couple breaths. Active through the legs, so the toes can wiggle, the heels are pressing into the earth. Make sure you're not squeezing the top of the knees, squeezing around the quadriceps, and try to stay active but soft. It's kind of weird to try to incorporate that into the pose, but just taking your time, constantly making adjustments, and always checking in with your breath, making sure that you're not holding if it's uncomfortable. Sometimes we get really shallow. So make sure it's a deep breath all the way down. And then slowly walk it up. So from here, I want you to place your left palm on the earth and reach your right arm up. And then slowly walk the fingers out. So again, this is a side body stretch. We're not scooping towards the front. We're not arching towards the back. The spine is not involved as much as the side body. Reaching out. Breathe. A lot of us tend to hold our breath when we do side lateral stretches because it's kind of squishing on one side, obviously. But we want to learn to incorporate the breath in these long, squishy holds. Inhale back up. Left or right palm's going to come to the earth. Walk the fingers out. Left arm's going to reach up, and this may be it. This may be your lateral stretch, and that's okay. We're working on opening the rib cage on this left side. If you can go a little deeper, you're going to start to feel it extend down into the psoas, into the space right above the ribs, above the hip. Feet again, they're active. Make sure that sit bone stays connected to the earth. And as you hold, you start to sink a little deeper. That's the fascia beginning to release and rewrite itself. Let's come back to the other side. Left palm comes onto the earth, fingers walk out, right arm's reaching up. And then here's some awareness to bring into the body too. Okay, so first of all, the sit bone, I want it on the earth. If you start to lift off, you've gone too far, because that means you're coming out of the leg and the hip. So I want you to keep that sit bone connected so you don't go as far. And then I don't want you to hyperextend where you're pulling out of that shoulder girdle. I want the shoulder to stay seated in the actual socket. So the extension is coming all through the side body. It's a completely different stretch when you take those two things into consideration. Breathe. Breathe through any obstacles that may form in your mind, in your body. Soften the gaze, finding a focal point, a drishti, or just closing them and coming inward and just listening to that soundtrack. Come back up. Right fingers come to the earth, walk them out. Left arm reaches up. Explore where your edge is without sacrificing the authenticity of the pose. So once that left sit bone comes off the earth, come back a little bit. Once that shoulder starts to extend out of the socket, draw it back a little bit so your arm can be a little soft. Stack that chin in line with the spine. And breathe. So this sequence is just learning to ground, connect to the earth, which draws up protection. That makes you sort of combat negativity, negative emotions, blockages. Grounding helps us feel more confident, more solid, emotionally and physically. And then bring it back. Whew. Take a couple shoulder rolls here in one direction. And take them in the other direction. And then just crossing your arms and just kind of squeezing a little bit up and down the neck a little bit, because you sometimes bring a little tension into the neck as you make these side lateral movements. So, okay, we're gonna bring it into the legs a little more powerfully. We're gonna bring them together, rock them out, shake them out, and we're gonna come into lizard pose. So sweep the legs around, take a pad if you have one or a blanket so that you can place it underneath the knee if you end up dropping a knee down. And then we're gonna take a block on each side. I'm gonna use a bolster for one of my blocks. It's even with my block here. We're gonna set up for a lizard. So left leg's gonna come forward. It's gonna come to the outside edge of the left side of the mat. Right knee's gonna extend back here to the right edge of the mat and maybe placing the knee on that pad or on the blanket. And then you're gonna take your block or bolsters, whatever you have, and you're gonna kind of come up and use the block to support you, nice and high. I want the back toe turned under on the right foot. I don't know, lizard, inside, sorry. Both blocks are on the inside. It's like something was wrong there. Lizard. Okay, inside block. My brain just had a little explosion there. So left foot's walking out. Block is on the inside, or 2 blocks, and you're going to use that to support yourself so that you can stay upright. Shoulders are going to roll down the back away from the ears, and then make sure that your belly's not just hanging out, that this is engaged. Draw the core in. When you do that, you'll feel that connection into that right hip flexor. So when you start to stack yourself and engage in the core, you're going to lift up a little bit. You're going to press into the left foot a little bit deeper. And then if you can, I want you to lift the right knee off the mat. So this is very active. And you can use the block to support yourself and stay up here. So we're building up a little bit of strength, and we're really putting a lot of tension and stress on the fascial system, which is what we need to do to create a little bit of change here. If this is too intense and you can't hold that leg up, you can drop the knee down. And then you can explore coming back up again and just holding it maybe for a second. And then you can drop it back down again. If you're okay to keep holding, just keep working on this tension. Breathe. And then lastly, we're all going to drop it down. Find a relaxed foot by pointing it back, and then we're going to take an opportunity to explore a little deeper lunge by placing the palms on the earth and leaning forward, really like a lizard. You can even stick out your tongue. Catch some flies. And then last but not least, we're going to rock open on the left blade of the left foot and just see what kind of mobility you have in your hip socket here. You might rock it out and then draw it in, engage into the left shoulder, and then rock it open again. So working on creating some synovial fluid in the hip joint itself, trying to keep that hip joint as mobile as we can. Just bringing movement that's not normal to our everyday patterns into this place of the body. These were patterns that we used to do when we were young. Some of us came more natural, and so now as we've aged, this ability to move this direction in the hip becomes a little lost on us. So let's try to rewrite that and then bring it back. Slowly walk the palms back towards the knee and then bring that left foot back. You can step off of that mat for a minute and just take a nice close kneeling position, or even a child's position for just a moment. We're not going to stay here but a second, but just kind of closing up shop, bringing everything back together again. Take a deep breath. Feels pretty good. So let's even ourselves out and move the blanket over to the other side, or whatever your padding is. And let's place the left knee on top of it. Bring the right foot to the outside edge of the right side of the mat. Bringing the block to the inside this time. We'll start correctly. Go ahead, fold and tuck that left foot under so that you're kind of in a toe stand, but really active through the back of that left foot. Right foot is placed on the mat, completely flat. All 4 points of the foot are active. And then coming up into a really tall extension in the spine. So pushing into that block a little bit, pushing into the right foot, activating through the right leg, and this hip flexor is really singing. And if it's available and you want to take it into a little more power, you can lift the left knee off the mat. So just staying really high, really active, super duper opening in the left back leg, hip flexor. If it's too intense, drop it down and explore it again. So not a lot of connection to the earth right now, but the lesson here is grounding through this right foot, and the back left foot still keeps you connected, correct? We can still find ways to ground and stay connected. Option here is to get a little deeper. Placing both palms on the earth, release the top of the foot onto the mat, become a little more passive. Get a little deeper, lunging a little more forward. Stick out the tongue. Ah! And then rock it open. Right blade of the foot is rocking open. There's all kinds of energy trigger points on the blades of our feet, connecting to organs in our body, connecting to muscles. It's a beautiful way to just sort of give yourself a little bit of acupuncture. By rocking, you're also creating a nice stretch through the outside of the ankle, which is really good for stability and strengthening in the ankle itself. And we're working on that hip joint. So all kinds of stuff going on here. It's not just showing up and doing lazy stretches. And then slowly walk the palms back towards the left knee and bring the knees together, kneeling, or come into a child's pose. Just take it all into a tiny ball for just a moment. Take a couple deep breaths here. And then we're gonna slither all the way down onto the mat. We're gonna take one active pose for the spine in Sphinx pose. So choosing what bolster you would like to use. You can use a skinny one, you can use a big fat one. We're gonna take the forearms, we're gonna spread them shoulder width apart, and then we're gonna draw the forearms, elbows back towards the chest. We've got this bolster supporting our upper rib cage right around the breast, and fingers are going to spread really, really wide. So you almost want to make an L shape too, so that the pointer finger and is pointing up towards the front of the mat and the thumb is trying to stretch towards each other. So the fingers are really important to be really active. And then make sure that you're not scrunched up and your neck is dropping down, but start to feel like somebody's pulling a string out of the crown of your head. Lengthen, lengthen, lengthen the spine until you feel the forearms take some weight, actively pressing into the earth, grounding the entire elbow through the bottom of the forearm, through the pads of the fingers. And gaze is off the tip of your nose, so don't crank up either. And then see if you can feel the shoulder blades slide down the back. Now I want you to feel the pubic bone start to press into the earth. So you might have a tiny, tiny tuck, and it's protecting the spine slightly. Soften the jaw. And here's a biggie. Try to find that full breath. It may feel a little more difficult from the compression into the mat, into the bolster. So be really intentional. It makes you kind of slurp it all the way down. So if you practice Ujjayi breath work, this is a beautiful place to kind of hear it and feel it. And it does make you sort of take it through like a straw, because it's kind of hard to draw that breath into the bottom of the lungs when you're pressing into the earth. So it draws it in really slowly, really intentionally. And then the bolster, the earth, helps you just release and expel that breath with a little bit of force. So it's very cleansing, very purifying, very nourishing. If you start to feel any discomfort in this pose, you can always relax a little bit, drop down a little bit, and then kind of hit a reset. slowly begin to slide the palms back to the outside of the body, press up. And one last child's pose. Knees are nice and wide, big toes are coming together, palms are stretched out towards the mat. And just breathe here. Take a couple cleansing breaths before we come into final resting pose. Walk the palms over to the right side, pressing through the left hip, through the left side body. And then back through center, walk the palms over to the left. Back through center one last time. Slide the palms all the way back up. Take a little bit of a cat as you come through table. And then slowly, slowly take yourself down onto the mat, spin it around onto the back. Take a blanket if you have one. An eye pillow is a lovely investment. They're super cheap. You can find them on Etsy. You can find them anywhere. I mean, they're just everywhere anymore these days. Open up your blanket. Drop down into Shavasana. No props necessary for this final resting pose. Taking the eye pillow and just closing off all of that little light that's trying to creep in and just flipping the palms up. We've grounded through this entire practice, and now I just want you to take a moment to just receive. Receive all the gifts from the practice, all the nourishment. Feel the pathways that have been cleared, not only energetically, but physically. And just notice this new spaciousness, this new place that you've arrived and created in your vessel. Remain here for a couple of breaths. Let me be the ground beneath your feet. Let me comfort you on my soft grasses. Let me relax you on my white sands. Let me refresh you in my cool, clear waters. Let me cool you under the leaves of my trees. Let me fill your eyes with the colors of my rainbows. Let me fill your ears with the songs of my birds. Let me fill your nose with the essences of my blossoms. Let me cleanse you with my rain. Let me renew you with my storms. Let me warm you with my fire. Let me feed your body from my soil. Let me quench your thirst from my streams. Let me give you companionship with my animals. Let me be your teacher in all things, big and small. Let me give you the secrets of the universe. Let me give you healing with a simple touch. Let me give you love. The earth. So begin to wiggle your fingers your toes. Bringing smaller and smaller movements back to life in the body. Taking a deeper breath, reaching the arms up overhead as you draw the knees towards the chest and just rolling to the left or the right side and just pausing in this fetal position for just a breath or two here before you return to an upright seat. As you sit up, find a comfortable position, keeping the gaze low or the eyes closed for just these last moments of class. Draw the palms together at the heart center. May you honor new beginnings by practicing grounding work, and may it lead you to feeling solid and protected. Light in me honors the light in each and every one of you. Shine on. Namaste.